Emma wiped her hands on her apron for the third time that night. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and fried onions. Plates clinked. Customers complained. Her manager shouted orders from the kitchen. But Emma's mind was somewhere else. On a small hill, under a gray sky, in front of a cold stone, her father's grave. As the clock hit midnight, she untied her apron and grabbed her worn-out bag. "Emma, closing time. Don't forget to lock the side door," her manager called. I know," she said, forcing a smile. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. Streetlights hummed. Her shoes clicked on the pavement as she walked toward the bus stop. It was the only time she truly felt alone. No customers. No fake smiles. "No, of course, sir, and right away, ma'am." Just her. And the memory of the man who used to wait for her outside the diner with a cup of hot tea. Her father. He had been gone for 6 months. When the bus dropped her near the cemetery, the night was already deep. The iron gate creaked as she pushed it open. Crickets sang somewhere in the dark. A distant dog barked. The sky felt heavy, like it was about to cry. Emma walked the familiar path. Row 7. Third stone on the left. David Cole. Beloved father. Honest soul. She knew the words by heart. She knelt down, placed a small bouquet of cheap white flowers on the grave, and traced the letters with her fingertips. "Hi, Dad," she whispered. "I'm sorry I'm late." Double shift. Her voice trembled. She swallowed hard. The wind tugged at her hair. "It's been rough," she murmured. "The bills are piling up. The landlord is angry. Mom still can't sleep without crying. I'm tired, Dad." Silence. For a moment the world felt frozen. Just the wind, the stone, and the ache in her chest. Then she noticed something. The grave already had flowers. Her eyes narrowed. On the other side of the headstone was a large, expensive bouquet. Roses, lilies, carefully arranged, tied with a silk ribbon. Emma frowned. "These aren't mine," she whispered. She picked up the card tucked between the stems. There was no name, just a simple, handwritten line. "I'm sorry. I will never forget what you did. Em." Her heart started to beat faster. Who was Em? Who was leaving expensive flowers on her father's grave? And why? Emma looked around, but the cemetery was empty, just shadows and stones. She stayed there longer than usual that night, talking, crying, asking questions into the dark that no one answered. But as she left, she kept glancing back, at the bouquet, at the silent apology. She had no idea that the person behind that simple letter was about to walk into her life and change everything. Days passed. Work, sleep, work again. Emma tried to forget the mysterious bouquet. She told herself it was probably some mix-up. Maybe the florist got the graves wrong. Maybe the card was meant for another David. But every time she went back to the cemetery, there was something new. A different bouquet. Sometimes candles. Sometimes a small wooden cross, freshly polished. Always with the same letter. Always signed M. One afternoon, after another exhausting shift, she decided to go earlier than usual. The sun was still up, painting the sky with streaks of gold and pink. The cemetery looked different in daylight. Softer, less cruel. As she walked toward her father's grave, she heard something. A voice. Low. Cracking. She slowed down. Then she saw him. A man in a dark suit. Perfectly tailored. Polished shoes sinking slightly into the soft earth. An expensive watch glinting in the evening light. He was kneeling in front of her father's grave. His shoulders were shaking. Emma froze behind a nearby tree. She felt rude watching him, but she couldn't move. She couldn't look away. The man's hands were pressed together, as if in prayer. "I'm sorry, David," he whispered. "If I had listened, if I had acted sooner, you'd still be here." Her heart stopped. David. Her father's name. The man's voice broke. "You saved my life," he said, "and I couldn't save yours. I don't know how to carry that." A tear slid down his face. He wiped it away quickly, like someone who wasn't used to being seen weak. Emma's mind raced. Who is he? How does he know my dad? Why has he never come to see us? He placed another bouquet at the base of the stone. The flowers were so fresh they still had droplets of water on the petals. Then slowly he stood up. For a second his gaze drifted and landed on Emma. Their eyes met. Her stomach clenched. She felt caught, like a kid spying on a stranger's secret. The man hesitated. His jaw tightened. "I didn't mean to interrupt," Emma stammered, stepping out from behind the tree. This is my father's grave." Something flashed in his eyes. Shock, guilt, pain. "Your father?" he repeated softly. "Your Emma?" She froze. "How do you know my name?" she whispered. He looked at her like he'd been expecting this moment for a long time. "I knew your father," he said. "Very well." He walked closer, but stopped at a respectful distance. "I'm Michael," he said quietly. "Michael Hawthorne." The name hit her like a slap. Even if you were poor, if you lived in the city, you knew that name. Michael Hawthorne, billionaire, owner of Hawthorne International. The kind of man who appeared on magazine covers, not in cemeteries on his knees. Emma's fingers went cold. A billionaire, crying at her father's grave. "I don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "Why are you here?" He looked at the headstone, then back at her. "Because," he whispered, "your father died because of me." Her breath caught in her throat. And in that moment, standing between the past and the present, Emma realized. The story of her father's death might not be what she'd always been told. Emma felt like the ground was sliding under her feet. "What do you mean he died because of you?" she snapped. "He had a heart attack at work. That's what we were told. That's what the company wrote in the letter." Michael flinched at her words. "I know that's what you were told," he said quietly. "Because I allowed it." Anger burned in her chest. "You allowed it?" she repeated. "Like it was nothing?" He took a slow breath. "Do you want to sit?" he asked. "I can explain everything. You deserve the truth." She wanted to scream at him. She wanted to turn away and never see his face again. But she also wanted answers. With stiff movements, she sat on the small stone bench near the grave. Michael sat at the other end, leaving space between them. "It happened 8 months ago," he began. "At the main office, we had been receiving threats. Someone was angry about a business deal. We tightened security, but it wasn't enough." Emma's throat went dry. Her father had started coming home late around that time. He never told her why. "One night," Michael continued, "a man with a gun got into the building. He was looking for me." Emma's fingers curled into fists. The alarms went off. People were running. Your father was on duty at the front entrance. He didn't have a weapon, just his radio. She could picture it too clearly. Her father in his faded uniform. The way he used to joke that he was protecting millionaires in shiny suits. "The intruder reached the main hall," Michael said softly. "That's where I was. I remember the gun pointed at my chest." His voice trembled. Emma swallowed. She could almost hear the echoes in that building. The panic. "Your father stepped in front of me," he whispered. Emma blinked. "He what?" "He stepped in front of me," Michael repeated, staring at the grave. "He grabbed the man's arm. They struggled. He shouted for me to get down. The gun went off. The intruder ran. Security tackled him outside." Michael's eyes glistened. "And your father collapsed," he said. "The doctors said his heart couldn't handle the stress. He died on the way to the hospital." Emma felt like the air had been punched out of her lungs. Her father had never told her about threats, about danger, about protecting anyone. And yet, she could hear his voice in her head. "Don't worry about me, kiddo. I can handle myself." "We sent a report. We sent money," Michael said painfully. "But our legal team, they advised we call it a workplace medical emergency. They didn't want the press talking about a security breach. They didn't want the stock to fall. They buried the truth." He looked at Emma with raw regret. "And I let them." For a long moment, Emma didn't speak. The cemetery was too quiet. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. You let them lie about my father, she finally whispered. You let them call him a medical case instead of a hero. He closed his eyes. Yes. She stood up, shaking with anger. Do you know what we got? She asked. A cold letter, a small check, a few lines about service and condolences. You didn't come to the funeral. You didn't visit us. You didn't even say his name in public. You hid him. Her voice cracked on the last word. Michael rose to his feet too. I know, he said, and I regret it every day. He glanced at the tombstone. But I didn't stay away completely, he added softly. I've been coming here, to his grave, for months. I talk to him. I tell him I'm sorry. I leave flowers because it's the only thing I know how to do. Emma stared at him. You visit his grave, she said slowly. But you never had the courage to knock on our door? He winced. I didn't know if your family would want to see me, he confessed. I thought maybe my presence would only bring more pain. A bitter laugh escaped her. And now? What changed? Michael looked straight into her eyes. I saw you, he said, the first time you came here at night, crying alone, talking to him. You reminded me of my daughter. His voice broke on the last word. I lost her years ago, he whispered, and I wasn't there for her either. For a moment, Emma forgot her anger. This man, this billionaire, this powerful figure in magazines, was standing in front of her like a broken child. But pain doesn't erase the past. Tears don't rewrite letters. The question pounding in her chest was simple. Was sorrow enough? Or was it just too late? The next day, Emma tried to pretend nothing had changed. She put on her uniform, took orders, smiled at rude customers, carried heavy trays until her arms ached. But her mind was somewhere else. It was in a hallway she'd never seen. A gun, her father shouting, a billionaire on the floor, a heart giving out. During a short break, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her swipe. Hello, Emma? It's Michael Hawthorne. She froze. How did you get my number? She asked. I asked your manager, he admitted. I told him I wanted to offer you an opportunity. He thought it was about a job. Her eyes narrowed. What do you want? She said, her tone guarded. I want to meet, he replied. In my office, where your father worked, where he saved my life. Please, just once. Then, if you never want to see me again, I'll respect that. Part of her wanted to hang up. Another part needed closure. Fine, she muttered. Tomorrow, after my shift. The next afternoon, Emma stood in front of a building she had only ever cleaned the outside windows of. Hawthorne International. Glass. Steel. Security at the door. Her heart pounded as she walked in. The marble floors shone. The air smelled like expensive cologne and polished wood. A receptionist smiled politely. Ms. Emma Cole? Mr. Hawthorne is expecting you. She was escorted to the top floor. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, she saw him. Michael. No cameras. No reporters. No crowd. Just a man in a suit standing by a large window, city lights stretching behind him. Thank you for coming, he said sincerely. She crossed her arms. Make it worth it, she replied. He smiled sadly. I deserve that. He gestured to a wall behind his desk. Emma turned. Her breath caught. It was a memorial wall. Small, discreet, but powerful. On it, a single plaque. In memory of David Cole. He gave his life protecting others. Her eyes filled with tears. You put his name here? She whispered. Last month, Michael said. I wanted everyone here to see it. To remember. He paused. But it felt incomplete without his daughter knowing. Emma stepped closer. Gently, she traced her father's name with trembling fingers. No lies, no polite phrases, just the truth. He should have had this from the beginning, she murmured. I know, Michael replied, and I can't change the past. But I can try not to fail him anymore. He pulled out an envelope from his desk and placed it on the table. What's that? she asked suspiciously. Something I should have done the day he died, Michael said. A full compensation package. His salary for the next 10 years. A scholarship fund in your name. And a pension plan for your mother. All legal. All transparent. No more hiding. Emma stared at the envelope like it was something dangerous. You think money fixes everything? She asked quietly. No, Michael said. Money doesn't fix grief. It doesn't replace a father. It doesn't erase my cowardice. He took a breath. But it might ease the weight on your shoulders. The weight that should have been mine. Silence stretched between them. Emma thought of the unpaid rent. The medicine her mother rationed. The nights she came home so tired she cried in the shower. She also thought of her father. His pride. His stubbornness. The way he had always refused help, wanting to provide on his own. What would he say? She whispered. Michael's voice softened. I think he'd say, take it, kiddo. He managed a small smile. He always talked about you, you know. Every time I passed the security desk. He'd show me your photo and brag. Emma blinked. He talked about me? All the time, Michael said. He said you were smarter than anyone in this building. That you'd go far if life gave you a chance. Her throat closed. And I didn't give you that chance, he added. I'm trying to now. She picked up the envelope slowly. Felt heavy. Not just with paper but with history. Is this guilt? She asked. Or gratitude? Michael held her gaze. Both. And as Emma stood in that glass office, holding the future in her hands, one question tore through her. Was she accepting justice for her father? Or forgiving the man who betrayed his memory? Weeks passed. Life didn't magically transform overnight. But something shifted. Emma moved her mother into a smaller, warmer apartment. The constant fear of eviction faded. She paid off old medical bills. For the first time in months, her mother slept through the night. One evening, as Emma filled out the forms for the scholarship fund Michael had created, her mother watched her thoughtfully. You're sure about this? Her mother asked. Going back to school? Emma smiled faintly. Dad wanted this, she said. He didn't want me carrying plates forever. Her mother's eyes glistened. He'd be so proud. Emma still worked part-time at the diner, but soon she'd be taking evening classes. Business. Finance. She joked that maybe one day she'd buy Hawthorne International. But behind the jokes, something deep was healing. She went to the cemetery more often, not with only tears, but with stories. Hey, Dad, she'd say, placing fresh flowers. Guess what? I got approved for the scholarship. Guess what? Mom laughed today. Like really laughed. And sometimes, she wasn't alone. Michael would be there too. Not always. Not every visit. But often enough that it stopped feeling strange. He came without bodyguards. Without cameras. Without anyone knowing. He'd clean the stone. Straighten the flowers. Talk to the man who had stepped between him and a bullet. At first, Emma spoke to him stiffly. Polite. Distant. Over time, her anger cooled into something more complicated. One rainy afternoon, they stood under the same umbrella, water dripping around them like a curtain. The grave between them. I don't know how to do this, Michael admitted suddenly. Do what? She asked. Make it right, he said. Some days, I feel like I'm just throwing money and apologies at a wound that will never heal. Emma looked at the gravestone. You can't fix death, she said quietly. You can't fix what happened. He nodded, his jaw clenched. But you can decide what kind of man you'll be after it. He turned to her, surprised. You came here alone for months, she continued. You could have forgotten him, moved on, pretended it never happened. You're a billionaire. No one forces you to kneel in the dirt. She shrugged. I still hate what you did, she added. I hate that you hid the truth, that you let a hero die on paper as just another employee. He lowered his gaze. But, she said, her voice softening, I also see the man standing in the rain, visiting a grave that doesn't belong to his family, putting my future in my hands, not out of charity, but because you know you owe us more than flowers. He swallowed hard. "Do you forgive me?" he asked, almost afraid of the answer. Emma was silent for a long time. Raindrops tapped on the umbrella. The sky grumbled. "I don't know if I'm ready to say, 'I forgive you,'" she admitted. "Not completely. Maybe forgiveness is a road, not a switch." He nodded slowly. "But," she added, "I can say this, I don't hate you. And I'm willing to see what kind of man you become from here on." A shaky breath escaped his lips. It sounded almost like relief. "Thank you," he whispered. They stood like that for a while. A waitress, a billionaire, both bound by the same man lying beneath the stone. Not equal in money, not equal in power, but in that moment equal in grief. Before leaving, Emma placed her bouquet on the grave. "It's strange," she murmured. "The first time I saw you here, I was terrified, seeing a billionaire crying at my father's grave. It felt wrong, like two worlds colliding." She smiled faintly. "Now it just feels human." Michael let out a quiet laugh. "Turns out," he said, "graves don't care about bank accounts." They walked back to the gate together. At the path, their ways split. Her bus stopped to the left, his car to the right. "Emma," Michael called. She turned. "I'll keep honoring him," he said. "Not just here. In this company. In my decisions. In the way I treat people who don't have what I have." She studied him, then nodded. "I'll hold you to that." That night, as Emma lay in bed, she stared at the ceiling and thought of everything that had happened. Her father's sacrifice. The lies. The flowers. The plaque. The money. The shared grief at a cold stone. And she realized something. Sometimes, justice doesn't come clean and perfect. Sometimes it comes with tears, second chances, and imperfect people trying not to repeat old mistakes. If you were in Emma's place, standing face to face with the billionaire who hid the truth about your father's death, backhand index pointing right, would you accept his help and slowly learn to forgive? Or would you walk away and refuse everything he offered, no matter the cost? Tell me in the comments, what would you do and why?